Right, gents, today we are talking about cheap signals versus rich signals. The signal that you send as a man in how you dress. Okay, so most men think looking rich means buying loud, flashy, obvious stuff, right? We're talking the big logo, the big shiny watch, the look at me gear, right? It's the opposite. That loud stuff is a cheap signal. And here's the contradiction that should stop you in your tracks. You can spend a fortune on it and still look cheap. By the end of this, you'll be able to read the difference between a cheap signal and a rich one instantly, and you'll understand why the most expensive looking men in the room are usually the quietest. Here's the truth underneath all of it. When a man covers himself in logos and flash, he's outsourcing his worth to a brand, right? He's paying to borrow someone else's name because deep down, he's not sure of his own substance. He's not sure his own as a man is enough, okay? That's why it reads as cheap, no matter the price. Everyone can feel the insecurity underneath it. The man who looks genuinely expensive does the opposite. He invests in himself, the fit, the fabric, the quality, quietly because he already knows what he's worth, okay? One man buys a logo to feel like something, the other builds himself into something. That's the difference. I'm gonna show you both side by side, the cheap signals and the rich ones, point by point, so you can see exactly what's reading as insecure and what's reading as real. The logos, the flash, the fit, the restraint, the whole lot. And underneath every bit of it is one idea that I want you to walk away gripping. You are the asset. You don't need a logo to prove you're worth something. Okay, you need to start investing in the one thing that actually is worth something, yourself. Now, let's start with the idea that breaks the whole thing open. The flex, okay, the loud display of wealth is for the insecure. The man shouting about what he spent is telling you something. And it isn't that he's rich, it's that he needs you to think that he is. There's a difference, and it's a big one. Think about what a loud signal actually is. The massive logo across the chest, the flashy blinged up watch, worn to be noticed, the brand name shouting from every item. All of it is a man waving his arms going, look at me, look what I've got, look what I'm worth, etc. And the second a man has to tell you he's worth something, he's essentially told you the opposite. And he's not sure, and he needs the stuff to make the case for him. Confidence doesn't need to announce itself. Insecurity always does. Now, flip to the other man, the genuinely secure one. He doesn't flex because he's got nothing to prove. This guy right here. He's not waving anything in your face. No logos, doing his talking, no flash, begging for attention. He's calm, understated, quiet, and somehow he reads as more impressive, more substantial, more like real money than the man covered in branding ever could. Because his worth isn't stuck on the outside of him for show. It's built into him, and you can feel it without being told. Here's the thread I want you holding the whole way through this, because it's what it's really about. You are the asset, not the logo, not the watch, not the brand, you. The flashy man forgot that. So he's trying to buy worth and bolt it onto the outside. The secure man knows it, so he invests in the actual asset himself instead. Everything we're about to go through comes back to that one choice. Are you trying to look worth something, or are you actually building yourself into something? Hold that, and then let's read the signals. So why does loud stuff read as cheap even when it actually costs a lot? It comes down to one simple thing. When you have to tell people you're rich, they won't think so. Okay, the telling is the problem. If you picture two men with the exact same money in the bank, one wears a huge logo and a flashy watch, turn to catch the light. The other wears plain, well-made clothes and nothing shouting. Same money, but they feel completely different to be around. The loud one feels like he's trying to prove something. The quiet one feels like he's got nothing to prove. And we pick up on that in a second without even thinking about it. Now, here's why. Trying to look rich and being secure are opposites. A man who's sure of himself doesn't need you to notice his stuff. A man who isn't sure needs the stuff to do the job his confidence can't, right? So the louder a man shouts with his clothes, the more he's telling you he's not certain underneath. The flash isn't a sign of strength, it's a sign of doubt. Wearing an expensive costume, essentially. And this is the heart of it, the bit I want you to really get and take home. Loud clothes are a man borrowing worth from a brand because he doesn't feel it in himself. He's basically renting confidence, okay? But you can't rent it. Everyone can still see the real man underneath. And that's why it never quite works. The answer was never to shout louder, it's to build the worth into yourself so you don't need to shout at all. That's the difference between every cheap signal and every rich one, okay? And we're about to see it play out piece by piece. Okay, so let's start with the biggest cheap signal of all. We're talking the logo, okay? The big brand name plastered across your chest, your cap, your bag, etc. The thing you bought especially so people could see the label. It feels like a rich signal. It's the cheapest one there is. Here's the contradiction that should stop you dead. The logo was expensive. You paid a lot for it, and it still makes you look cheap. Now, how does that work? Because what people read isn't the price, it's the need. They see a man who wanted everyone to know the brand, and that need to be seen is what reads as cheap, no matter how much the item costs. You spend big money to send a poor signal. Expensive and cheap looking at the same time. That's the trap. And think about what you're actually doing when you wear a giant logo. You're advertising for that company for free all day. They charge you more for the bigger label, and in return, you walk around being their billboard. You paid them to do their marketing, okay? Now, that is marketing brand 101 for sure, okay? But we're talking about you as the man, you as the asset, not the brand. Now, what's worse, you let their name speak for you instead of your own. You're saying, I'm not sure I'm enough, so here's a famous brand to stand in front of me. That's a lot to give away for a bit of stitching. Now here's the thread again, because the logo is the perfect example of getting it backwards. You don't need a brand's name to be worth something. You already are, as I mentioned before. Sticking a logo on yourself doesn't add worth. It just shows you went looking for it on the outside when it was meant to be built on the inside. The man who takes the logo off isn't losing anything. He's saying, I don't need someone else's name. Mine is enough. And that with nothing shouting at all reads as more money and more man than any label ever could. And look, here's something that proves all of this, and it's a real story about how the world has changed. Logos didn't always read as cheap. They used to be a rich signal. That flipped, okay? They flipped it, and understanding this is actually the whole game. If you go back a while, the wealthy used logos and labels to show that they had arrived, essentially, right? Visible branding meant money, plain and simple. If you think about it, I don't know, maybe the 80s, I think I need to go back in my mind, probably the 80s, right? But the brands then did the obvious thing. They started selling those logos to anyone who could pay. So people who just come into money, what's called new money, which isn't a bad thing, okay? Because a lot of the guys watching this, me included, we would be classed as new money, okay? But there's a way to hold yourself even though you've got new money. They started, and a lot of these guys got it wrong, they started covering themselves in labels to show the world they'd made it, okay? The logo became the sound of a man shouting, look, I've got money now, okay? It went from quiet proof to a loud announcement. And the moment that happened, the people with old money that had been in the family a long time, dropped logos completely, okay? They've gone the exact opposite. Their taste had grown over time, and to them, the label now looked desperate, like trying too hard, okay? So they moved to the opposite, no logos at all. Just quiet quality. You'd only notice if you knew what you were looking at. The signal flipped right over. It's gone from rich status and wealth to cringy, new money, cheap. It went from meaning rich to meaning new and unsure, and quiet, plain quality became the real mark of money and taste. So that's the world you're actually dressing in now. The logo is cheap, or is a cheap signal, not because I say so, but because the most secure established money in the world walked away from it and never looked back. And it ties straight to the thread. The men most comfortable with their work stopped needing it or needing to display it, okay? They stopped buying labels to look like something and started getting quiet quality say it for them. That's actually the move you're copying, not the new money shout, the old money calm. The man who knows what he's worth and feels no need to prove it. Capiche? Now, the one that trips everyone up is shiny, bold, flashy clothes, okay? You would think this whole thing is heading towards flash is bad, quiet good. It's not that simple, okay? And if I left it there, I'd be telling you to never express yourself, which is wrong, especially coming from me, and I express myself a lot. The truth is bold is fine. The real question is who's in charge? Are you wearing bold, the bold stuff, or is the bold stuff wearing you? There's bold that's a cheap signal and a bold that's a rich one. And on the hanger, they can look the same. The cheap version is a man hiding behind the flash. He's wearing it to be noticed, to prove something, and you can see it on him a mile away. He's a bit tense, scanning the room, waiting to find out if it worked. The flash is doing the job, his confidence can't, right? Conversely, the rich version is a man in something that is bold and stands out, big statement jewelry, an unusual shirt, a set of boots with a metal toe, no logos, just striking pieces, and he's totally relaxed in it. He's not asking the room for permission, he's just wearing it. Same bold clothes, opposite signal. And it's the only thing that changed is the man and how he carries himself. That's the whole secret of pulling off flash. It was never about the items, it's the energy underneath them. Worn tense to be approved of, even the best pieces read as insecure. If it's worn relaxed, like it's nothing, like you'd wear it to the corner shop, those exact same pieces read as power. The man who doesn't care how it lands is the one it lands best on. The worry is the weakness, not worrying is the strength. Here's the clearest example. A properly masculine man can wear something soft, a bit decorative, even a bit camp, and it makes him look more powerful, not less. Why? Because he's so comfortable with who he is that a fancy shirt can't dent it. He's not scared of what the clothes might say about him because he already knows exactly who he is. An insecure man can't go near that stuff, okay? He needs every single thing he wears to shout that he's a man because deep down he's not sure in and of himself. And that's the thread. Again, when you're secure in your worth, you can wear anything, bold, quiet, flash, plain, because the worth is in you, not the clothes. The flash stops being proof and just becomes you having fun because the asset underneath, the man, is already sorted. That's how you wear bold and still look rich. You carry it, you don't hide behind it. So if loud isn't the rich signal, what is? Now there's three quiet things almost nobody clocks on purpose because everybody feels it. The first is fit, then you've got fabric and knowing what to leave off. So these core things, fit, fabric, and knowing what to leave off, this is what actually reads as money. And not one of them shouts, okay? Now, we talk about the first, which is fit, right? Clothes that sit right on your body. They're not super tight, but they're also not baggy, just made for you or fitted to you by a tailor. Fit is the number one thing that reads as expensive and it's completely quiet, okay? There's no logo, no shine, nothing to point at. It just looks right. A cheap shirt that fits beats an expensive one that doesn't every time. Most of looking rich is honestly just your clothes fitting properly. And that's within your reach at almost any budget, okay? Now the second is your fabric, good cloth, the natural stuff. We're talking wool, cotton, linen, silk, looks deep and rich and soft. And you can spot it from across a room without reading any label. It's the opposite of cheap, shiny material. Nobody sees a brand. They just see something that looks and moves like quality. Okay, that's a rich signal doing its job in total silence, telling people you've got taste without one word written on you. Now, third, and this ties the other two together, is restraint, knowing what to leave off. The rich signal is often the thing that's missing. No logos, no flash, nothing extra, just clean, simple, well-made things worn well. It actually takes more confidence to wear less because now you've got nothing to hide behind. It's just you and the quality. And here's the thread. Every one of these, fit, fabric, and restraint, is money spent on the actual man and how he looks, not on the label to hold up in front of him. You're not buying a name, you're investing in yourself. That's why it reads as real, because it is. So let's go under the clothes for a second, because this was never really about clothes. The strongest rich signal isn't on your body at all. It's how you carry yourself. Quiet confidence is the real flex and no outfit can fake it. You felt this, okay? When a man walks in calm, easy, sure of himself, says little, doesn't fuss, doesn't perform, the room reads him as someone who matters. He could be in plain clothes and still feel like the most expensive man in the place. When another man walks in loud, logos, poor fitting clothes, trend chasing, flashy, working hard to be seen, he somehow reads as less, even if he's covered in expensive gear. The difference isn't the clothes, it's the calm. Calm says, I'm sure of myself. Fuss says, I'm not. And calm can't be bought, which is exactly why it's the strongest signal there is. You can buy a logo in an afternoon. You can't buy the quiet certainty of a man who knows who he is. That gets built slowly by actually becoming someone, not by shopping, okay? So when a man genuinely has it, everyone knows it's real because it's the one thing all of the flashy man's money still couldn't get him. The clothes just sit on top of it and makes it easy to see. This is the asset in plain sight. The most valuable thing you can wear is a settled, secure man underneath the clothes. If you get that right, and even the simple stuff looks rich on you because the clothes are framing something real, okay? If you get it wrong, no amount of flash hides it because everyone feels the fuss underneath. So the work isn't only on the wardrobe, it's on the man. Build the calm, build the certainty, become someone you don't feel the need to advertise, and that quiet confidence does more than any logo ever could. That's the real flex, and it's the one thing nobody can ever take off you. And I'm just gonna finish on a few things. There is a psychological response that people have, which I've talked about, and I'm just going to recap on it. Rich signals, what they read is wealth, status, presence. Room reads him as money. He is the asset. Okay, cheap signals looking for validation, projecting a temporary state. The clothes are the asset, not the man. Okay, this is everything in one idea. The thread that's run under all of it. You are the asset, not the logo, not the watch, not the brand. You. Okay. And once that really lands, the whole cheap versus rich thing sorts itself out on its own. Look at the two ways of doing it side by side. The cheap way is to spend money trying to look worth something. The logos, the flash, the borrowed names, all bolted onto the outside to convince people. It fails because its worth is rented from a brand and everyone can feel that it isn't really yours. The rich way is to spend money becoming worth something. Your fit, your fabric, your tailoring, your body, the calm of a man who's actually built himself. Same money, sometimes less, completely different result. Because one is decoration, here, cheap signals, okay? And the other is an investment, rich signals. And that's the real choice every time you buy something. Am I sticking a label on myself to look like more, or am I putting this money into the actual man? A big logo adds nothing to you. It just announces you went looking for worth in a shop. A well-fitting jacket in good cloth is money in the asset. It makes the real you look the most. One is a costume, the other is an investment in yourself, and it pays you back every single day you put it on. So strip the loud stuff out, okay? Not because flash is banned. You can wear bold and own it all day long, if that's you. Strip it because you don't need anything shouting on your behalf anymore. You are worth something, more than you realize. You always were. You don't need a logo to prove it. You need to start putting your money and your effort into the one thing actually worth investing, which is you. Okay? Do that and you'll send the richest signal there is. A man who knows what he's worth and doesn't need to say a word about it. Okay? Be the asset. Everything else is just a decoration. That's it, gents. Get some.